So I don't know about you, but sometimes when I go to parties or to gatherings like a barbecue in the summer, it'll just be a very low-key, casual event, but there's that one guy there who's really passionate about something. And whenever he gets into conversation, he totally sidelines the conversation to talk about that one thing. Now, in reality, that's often me. But there's always that guy, right? Take it easy. I think about this when I hear St. Paul today, because I imagine myself at a barbecue and St. Paul is just like, woe to me if I don't preach the gospel and all that I do is for this sake. Initially, I'm just like, all right, Paul, like, take it easy. We get it. Like, just have a hot dog, take it easy. And it's easy for me to brush this off to think, all right, Paul, that's great for you, but I don't necessarily want to do that. But the call that Jesus has for all of us is for all of us to be involved in this activity of evangelization that we see in St. Paul's life. This is not an optional part of the Christian life. And we might get a little confused because not all of us have had extensive training in theology or philosophy or the scriptures, and we might not consider ourselves a professional or an expert. And certainly, I didn't volunteer for this. I'm okay, I can just kind of hang out in the background. But when we look at the scriptures, we see that Jesus calls people to evangelize, and he calls people to follow him who are not qualified. He calls prostitutes, tax collectors, fishermen, and we hear St. Paul today. St. Paul persecuted the church, the least qualified people you could possibly think of. Those are the people that Jesus calls to evangelize. And so although we should always seek to become better and to know more about our faith, the first thing that I think the Lord's speaking to us today is he's inviting all of us to evangelization, to this mission of evangelization. St. Paul in our second reading says some pretty bold things. He says stuff like, woe to me if I don't preach the gospel, and all this I do for the sake of the gospel, that I too may have a share in it. Like, whoa. Again, take it easy, Paul. But it's very clear to see that St. Paul is all in. He's all in. And when the Lord invites us to be all in like St. Paul, the Lord doesn't just want to wait. He doesn't, all right, once you figure it all out, once you have enough knowledge, once you have enough practice, you can do it. No, the Lord calls us to that now, to that mission now. And do we have a plan for that? Do we really think that's a realistic thing for God to call us to? Because there's no way that we can really prepare for that. Oftentimes, opportunities for evangelization, at least in my own experience, come out of nowhere. And I often don't have time to prepare a statement or what I want to say. And although these opportunities often surprise us, and we have to think on the spot a little bit, we can have a general idea of what we might say in that kind of situation. Although we can't prepare exactly, we can prepare in general ways. And so a common situation that comes to my mind is when you're just waiting in line for something or you're standing around and you get into conversation with a stranger and you get to talking about where you're from, what you do. Sometimes religion comes up, and obviously it comes up because I wear the blacks all the time. But what would you say to that in that situation when that person who you don't know at all, they ask you, why do you follow Jesus? I want to be able to say more than, well, he loves me, I think. Like, that's not great. But one of the most powerful ways in which we can evangelize to others, like St. Paul invites us to in our second reading, is to give a short witness of what Jesus has done in our lives. Often people today are not convinced by reason, facts, or logic. But they'll listen to my own personal story to hear how Jesus has touched my life and why it's important for me to follow Jesus. And that can sometimes encourage others to follow him too. And to be able to tell my story, I don't need extensive theological knowledge. That's helpful. And also, when I tell my story, my journey with Jesus, people can't debate that. They can't debate my own experience. And so I think I would invite you all, and that was a challenge for me this week, to kind of reflect on your life and just to think about the highlights of what Jesus has done in your life and why you follow him, so that you'll be ready to tell others about him when someone asks you. And just to give you an example, I'll just give my own 1-minute spiel. My name is Deacon Joe Detweiler. I was born and raised in a great Catholic family here in St. Louis. I grew up going to church every weekend, and I received a lot of healing through the sacraments and the sacramental life of the church, most especially the sacrament of confession, where bringing my sins and my burdens before the Lord. And when I got to high school, I randomly ended up on a retreat at the seminary, and I had a very profound encounter with the Lord. And the Lord called me. He revealed to me that He wanted me to enter the seminary. And so over the next year or so, I progressively came back to the seminary, kept praying about it more and more, and the Lord kept revealing to me more and more about where He was calling me in my life. And so by the end of high school, I was getting ready to go to the seminary. But then my sister and I were in a very bad car accident the summer before my senior year. We weren't really expected to survive at all, but just when you look at it all, when I look back at all the details and all the people that came into the right place at the right time, it doesn't make sense. And as I look at my time in the hospital, I can see the great ways in which the Lord was laboring to love me and to manifest His great love for me in my suffering and in the lowest points of my life. And now, you would think that this is a traumatic situation that I don't ever want to relive again, but in reality, I go back to this experience every day. And this is an experience, although it was an experience of great pain and suffering and trauma, this is an experience that enriches my life every day, and that will continue to enrich my life every day for the rest of my life. And that is only possible by the love of Jesus. There's no worldly explanation for that. And so the Lord walks with me through everything, the ups and the downs of my life. And He can even make, it's all a gift, but some of the most precious gifts are even the low parts of my life. So that's why I follow Jesus, because He loves me and He labors to love me no matter what. So that's the shortened version. But as you can see, just giving a short witness of the highlights. You don't have to go into great detail, but just to give the person a sense that I actually believe what I'm proclaiming to believe, and you should too. And so as we come to Mass today to behold the sacrifice of Calvary, let's ask the Lord for the grace to be able to respond to His invitation to evangelize, even if we aren't always the most prepared. St. Paul tells us today that we are all obligated to do that. That's not an optional part of our faith. And through the abundant grace of the Eucharist, the Lord ensures us that we can do this now.